I work the night shift at a gas station, and let me tell you, it can get pretty creepy out here. It's dark, quiet, and sometimes I swear I hear things that make my skin crawl. Anyway, a while back I was just chilling, listening to the radio, when suddenly the news came on. They started talking about some criminal on the loose, armed and dangerous. They even described the car he was driving. Now here's the thing. I kinda zoned out halfway through the broadcast and switched to another station playing some hardcore rock. I was jamming away, totally oblivious to what was going on. About an hour later, this beat-up white station wagon pulled into the gas station. It was really old, with a busted taillight. A guy and a little girl of, I would say, about 7 got out. I noticed the woman in the car looked like she'd been crying, and she was pleading with the guy about something. I couldn't really hear properly, not with the music blaring. They headed into the shop and went to the bathroom. The guy looked like he was almost dragging the kid, and she didn't look happy to leave her mom in the car. I generally try not to get involved with customers. Whatever issue they're having is theirs to sort out and none of my business. But for some reason this felt different. The guy dragged her into the bathroom, took a minute to look around inside, then closed the door. He stood outside waiting, looking very irritated, and after not giving her much time in there, he started shouting angrily, "What you doing in there? Hurry up, mommy is waiting and you really don't want to piss me off." At this stage, I turned my radio down slightly, which shifted his attention my way. "What the fuck you looking at?" he shouted to me. Nothing, sir," I stammered. This guy wasn't someone to mess with. He's probably just on 6 foot tall with muscular arms and a tattoo of what looks like a python going around his forearm. Real gangster type. He banged on the bathroom door again and the girl finally came out, visibly shaking. At this point I'm sensing her fear, and to be honest, I'm also feeling nervous. While dragging her by the arm, he bellows, "What took so damn long?" She held up her finger, showing him she had cut herself. He didn't seem to notice, or he just didn't care. He walked to the counter for a box of smokes, and while he was getting some cash, I noticed the kid looking at me, then looking back at something on the floor before he yanked her towards the door. As soon as they were out, I left the counter to pick up what she'd dropped. Opening the note, written in her blood was the word, "Help." At that moment, there was a repeat of the news bulletin. "Be on the lookout for a man, late 30s, driving a white station wagon. He has kidnapped his ex-wife and daughter and is considered armed and dangerous." He was driving off as I was dialing 911. If I had paid attention to the whole news report, I would have known that this was the criminal they were looking for. It didn't take long for a police car to arrive. They briefly questioned me and I pointed them in the direction I'd seen the old station wagon go. I heard later that they had managed to catch him in a roadblock they'd set up, but not before he'd stabbed his ex-wife. I will never forget the haunted look in the little girl's eyes and the fear I saw on her mom's face. I will always regret not having paid attention to the broadcast. I don't know what I could have done, but maybe, just maybe, things could have ended differently. I've been working as a security guard at this warehouse with all sorts of high-tech equipment for a few years now. It's usually a quiet gig, just me and my station, keeping an eye on things through the cameras and making sure everything stays safe and secure. One night, as I'm sitting at my post, I hear a voice calling out from the gate. "Hello, hello," it says, and I go out to see who it is. There's this dirty-looking guy standing there, looking like he just stepped out of the 60s with a headband and everything. He asks if I want to buy some homemade lemonade. I give him a puzzled look and say, "It's the middle of the night. Why are you going around selling lemonade?" He just shrugs and says, "Everyone gets thirsty." I shake my head and tell him no thanks and head back to my station. But about 10 minutes later, I hear the same voice calling out again. I check the cameras and sure enough, it's the same guy. I ignore him, but he keeps on persisting. I drag myself back to the gate, highly irritated. "What now?" I ask, to which he responds with a really creepy grin on his face. "Do you want to buy some homemade lemonade?" Everything about this is just weird, but the guy seems harmless, if not annoying. No, I shout. Now get lost, you shouldn't be here. Suit yourself, he responds. Thinking that's the last of him, I go back to my station and settle down for what I hope will be an uneventful evening. An hour goes by and I'm feeling thirsty. I go to the tap to get some water and I'll be damned. It comes out all muddy looking. And wouldn't you know it, the kettle's empty too. Frustrated, I glance at the cameras and see the guy still standing there looking up at the camera. He's been standing there for over an hour now. I sigh and decide to go out there again. How much for a lemonade? I ask him, annoyed. He just smiles and says, "It's not for sale." Now I'm pissed. This guy has just been messing with me. I start to walk away, but then he adds, "It's for free." I hesitate for a moment, then turn back and grab a bottle of lemonade from him before heading back to my station. I sit down and take a few gulps. It actually tastes pretty good. A few hours later, I wake up feeling disoriented. Something doesn't feel right. I glance around and am lying on the floor with an empty bottle of lemonade in my hand. I get up and have to steady myself. I feel a bit dizzy and lightheaded. When I walk out, the sun is coming up and I soon realize that the warehouse has been cleaned out. Everything's gone. I call the cops and explain what had happened the previous evening. They rewind the videotapes, but everything's been wiped. Not a trace of the dirty hippie guy anywhere. So just like that, I've lost my job. There's an investigation. Obviously, I am the main suspect, but I am eventually cleared. Now, I'm out of a job and left to pick up the shattered pieces of my life. It was a few years later. I was watching a TV show on rich entrepreneurs. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was him, the hippie guy, but all cleaned up wearing fancy clothes. He was being interviewed about how he became a successful millionaire. He responded, "Well, it all started with me selling homemade lemonade. I grew the business into a multi-million-dollar empire." To her credit, the interviewer said, "But I couldn't find any information on your company." "Well," he responded, "look around you. As you can see, I live a very wealthy life." Then with that same creepy smile I'll never forget, the son of a bitch added, "My philosophy has always been, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade." I was working late at the office, trying to meet a deadline for our architectural firm. I was alone, everyone had left, and I was just finishing off the final draft of the design I'd been working on. It was late, round 11:30. The only sound came from the fluorescent lights which buzzed overhead. Other than that, it was quiet. We had a big open-plan office setting. I enjoyed working late when no one was around. I could get much more done without the noise that generally filled the office. I had gone to the bathroom when I suddenly heard the faint ding of the lift doors opening. I walked out, expecting to see a colleague returning for some or other reason, or perhaps a janitor making their rounds. But to my surprise, I couldn't see anyone. My heart started to race as I strained to listen. Two voices, muffled and angry, echoed through the empty hallway that led to the lift. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but the tension in the air was palpable. I didn't want to be caught eavesdropping on what sounded like a heated argument. The argument continued as the two men walked towards the office where I was. Instinctively, I ducked behind my desk, trying to make myself as small and inconspicuous as possible. Suddenly, I saw one of the men getting grabbed by the throat and pinned to the desk. There was a sickening thud, followed by a sharp crack. I peeked over the edge of the desk I was hiding behind to see the man's lifeless body collapsed on the desk, trickles of blood oozing from a wound on his head. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to comprehend what I had just witnessed. Fear gripped me as I realized I was now a witness to something sinister unfolding right in front of my eyes. I knew I had to stay hidden, lest I become the next victim. With bated breath, I watched as the other man frantically cleaned up the scene, his movements frantic and desperate. It took what felt like an eternity, but I dared not move even though I was scared shitless. From where I was situated in the office, I could barely make out what the man looked like, and I didn't want to look in case he spotted me. I had nowhere to run other than past him, so I stayed put. Every sound he made sent shivers down my spine as I prayed silently that he wouldn't discover my hiding place. I dared not make a sound, lest I draw attention to myself. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the man dragged the lifeless body into the lift and disappeared from sight. I remained hidden, trembling with fear, until the silence of the empty office building enveloped me once again. I couldn't comprehend what had just happened, and just sat there staring at the floor in shock. At this point, I didn't know what to do. I knew I had to get out of there, and was debating whether to leave and call the cops from my apartment or call the cops from the office. I couldn't get the image of the bloodied head out of my thoughts, and decided to get the hell out of there. As I gathered my things and made my way to the exit, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just narrowly escaped possible death. When walking past the scene of the incident, I could still see faint blood splatter on the telephone. I realized that was what had been used to bash the guy's head in. I chose to take the stairs and rush to my car in the basement. Once at my apartment, I called the cops. They went to my office building and asked me to come back to meet them there. When I got there, I could see they didn't believe my story. I showed them the desk, but saw that the phone was missing and not a drop of blood was visible. I couldn't give any description or say what the argument was about. Even to my own ears, the story sounded far-fetched. Nothing more could be done without any evidence that something took place, so I went back to my apartment. I had the realization that the guy must have come back up to finish cleaning. While he was coming up in the elevator, I was running down the stairs. That's a scary thought I try not to dwell on. I wasn't able to stay at my job. Word spread about what had happened, and everyone thought I'd made the whole thing up. They can call me crazy, but I know what I saw was real.